Hi, this is Shara Zwolgi from Astral Connections again. Here with me I have Paul Elder. Paul Elder is an international remote viewing instructor from the Monroe Institute. He's going to tell us a little bit more about himself in a second. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So last year when you were here, you told us a lot of things about yourself. So So I won't go into too much of your life, but maybe you can give a synopsis, just a brief description of your life, who Paul Elder is.
Oh my God. Among a whole bunch of other things, I am, these are just sort of physical things. I'm a former television news announcer from CTV a long time ago, former politician. I was the mayor of a city for a long time. And most importantly, I'm a survivor of several near-death experiences.
That's right.
And those, more than anything else, have defined
who you are
my
today.
life. Yeah.
And it's 3 different ones, isn't there? When you were a
Well, it's actually 5.
Okay, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
one when you were a child.
A drowning when I was 12 years old, car accident when I was 17, heart attack in the middle of a hockey game when I was playing when I was 41, and a second heart attack 6 years ago.
Okay.
And had a really profound experience. And a head-on collision 2 years ago on the highway.
So even a more recent one. Again.
Yeah, I can't get it right.
So how do you get back here?
I'm working on it.
So how do you get back here?
How do I get back here?
That's like,
yeah, I just, for whatever reasons, these things seem to keep happening, and maybe I'm supposed to pay more attention. I don't know.
wow. So remote viewing. Tell us about your history with remote viewing. You're going to give a talk today on that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, gosh, how?
Well, there's so many names out there. And
yeah,
I
think I'll just sort of back up a little bit into history, and as a result of the near-death experiences,
Please.
I began to have, and this is a number of years ago, began to have hundreds of out-of-body experiences. And I found out about this place called the Monroe Institute in Virginia, in which they actually did research into this kind of stuff, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
Did you actually get to meet?
Yeah, and I had read some books on it that Robert Monroe had written called Journeys Out of the Body and Far Journeys and Ultimate Journey, and I thought, well, that is really, really cool, but this guy's a nutcase, and until I began to have, out-of-body experiences, and then I thought, wow, he's not crazy, but I was amazed to find out they had set up a sort of a world-class, pioneering laboratory doing research into consciousness itself. And they had set up this facility in Virginia, and people, the ordinary public, could go there and take week-long programs and learn about themselves, learn about their own consciousness.
And still can.
Yes, absolutely. And so I began to go there, and some of the and I got to be, spend some time in their laboratory, and some of the things that happened to me when I was there, and some of the experiences that I had, got somebody's attention, and I met some really, really interesting people, and
tell me about them.
Who were involved in really weird stuff, like top secret research into consciousness itself, with the, here's an oxymoron, military intelligence. And these people had developed this program at the Stanford Research Institute, something they called remote viewing, and this was in response to a threat, a perceived threat from the Soviets back in the 70s, who had developed a program to train psychics as spies, and they could literally spy on America. They, psychics could sit in a darkened room in Russia and draw diagrams of missile sites in America, and of course they really thought, that was a huge threat, and so they had no idea how they ever going to, what if that's true? What do we do with that?
Yeah.
And so they came to, the leading place in those days was the Stanford Research Institute in California. And there were a couple of physicists, Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff, who were working, they're about the only people doing research, like full-on university scope research into the paranormal, into psychic abilities, things like that. So the CIA visited them and told them about the possibility of the problem with Russia and whether that was a possibility, and they thought it was. And so they thought, oh my God, well, if that's true, how do we defend against it? And they said, good luck,
Right.
You can't. And so the third question that it raised was, well, is this something we can do?
Right.
And so they thought it was, and so long story short, they developed this program that was based or developed at the Stanford Research Institute in California, and it was subsequently picked up and carried and by the United States Intelligence Services, Department of Defense, CIA, so on and so forth, and became a very vital part of their intelligence gathering.
Right, for gathering information about what's happening.
Right, right. And so when people ask, well, what is remote viewing? Well, it's actually, this isn't, some sort of quasi-science or woo-woo stuff. It's actually based on science and the operation of consciousness inside the human body. And it is an innate ability that all human beings have to be able to perceive anything, any person, place, thing, or event, going back in time or in the future, through their minds. And this is something we all are able to do. We all have this inherent ability to do this, just we don't know how to access it. Right. And so this program that they developed.
And you were involved with this program?
Yes.
And there was others, or?
Oh yeah, well, many others. Well, no, I'm Canadian, so I never ever worked for Stargate, and it was initially called Scanate, and then it was called several other different top secret code names from Grill Flame, and then it finally became Stargate. And I met the people that were running it. There's this wonderful man named Dale Graff, who was the Pentagon civilian director of Stargate.
Some kind of an advisor.
Yeah, well, he was the Pentagon director of it, okay. And then I found out that one of the people that I had been meeting on a regular basis every time I went to the Monroe Institute, this affable lab tech guy named Skip, who would hook me up in the lab, and when we're doing our sessions. And I found out that he used to be Captain Fred Atwater, and he was the original recruiting officer and manager of Stargate. And when he retired from the military, Bob Monroe hired him at the Monroe Institute as a research director.
Right.
And so I was like, whoa, this is so far out there. And so long story short.
You said there was no woo-woo here.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. There was no woo-woo. It was based on science, because this was like a military, a government experiment. It had to be repeatable scientific experiment, double-blind, so no woo-woo stuff, because it was based on...
It was repeatable and
right.
duplicatable, et cetera,
right, and based on science and based on government, spec for that kind, if you can put that on such a thing. And so I trained with a number of the original Stargate remote viewers, and spent a lot of time practicing and working on this particular skill, and doing sometimes jobs for the authorities on missing persons, looking for hostages, things of that nature.
So how is it different from a psychic finding a missing person?
Well, I think the functioning can come from the same places.
Right.
It's the processing of it that is different.
So there's steps in the process that somebody could duplicate, obviously,
yeah,
in this case.
Absolutely. And what it allows, because generally we have this notion that, either you're psychic or you're not. Some people have this wonderful ability. Sometimes it's genetic, sometimes it's passed on from grandparents and so on and so forth. And people have this, ability to see, hear, and feel, things that are shielded from us, or that we couldn't possibly understand or know. Well, everybody has that ability. And so what remote viewing does is it attempts to show people that they too, anybody can do this. It's just a matter of how you process thought and spending the time to learn about your own thought processing and so on and so forth. And that's the biggest part of it. And so subsequently I was recruited as a trainer at the Monroe Institute, where I teach remote viewing, and have done so for a lot of years now.
Yeah, that's right. And how did you go from being a student there to actually deciding to teach it? Like, what processes took place to make you
Well, a
get to
lot
that
of training.
confidence,
Yeah, a whole lot of training with, they seemed to think that I had this ability, or an extended ability or extra ability or something, because of the near-death experiences, I suppose. Because one of the things that they found out in their research is that people that had near-death experiences seemed to have this extra ability for this. And so they thought, well, that's maybe because people are able to retrace those steps, that spiritual pathway in the mind,
Right.
when they have this near-death experience. But I think
doesn't it open
Well,
different aspects of the brain that wouldn't otherwise be open?
well, no, I think they're
Does it
always
shut down
open. It's
again?
just that we don't pay attention
Access
to
them.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I think there may be some truth to that it does sort of allows us to sort of retrace our steps to some degree. But I think far more than that, the most important thing about people that have near-death experiences is you cannot have that experience without going over it 1,000,000 times in your mind. And the more time you spend in here, in your own thoughts, the more you understand how you process thought in relationship to the rest of the world.
That makes
And the
sense.
things that used to be just whispers that went through your mind before, that you thought were just innocuous nothings, now you might pay attention to that and say, wow, the last time that happened, and this happened, it was real.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to it, is that the
But like
people
a
who have
near-death
the experience.
a near-death experience, for example, is an experience that your brain would not have otherwise known. And
Right.
the way you process it, like you've had 5 of these experiences, would you say there's consistency in form to each of them, or?
Yes and no.
Okay.
All of the experiences were different. They had different aspects of them, but there was commonalities to all of them. And the most important thing that people need to realize, and science needs to realize, and they're tripping on it with quantum physics and things, is that our thoughts are not in our brains. All right? So I tell people, think outside the brain, because that's exactly where we do. Because if you can be conscious and aware for 1 moment, 1 second, away from your body, away from your brain, you learn very quickly that we are not our brains and we're not our bodies.
Right.
Right? And that our thoughts don't have to occur in the brain. And this is what science and medicine tries to do, is tries to place consciousness and the thought process in the physical structure of the brain, and that's just not the case.
So is it around the body? Is it above the body? Is it everywhere?
Well, our thought process, because most of our attention, depending on our awareness while we're in the body, if we're wide awake and conversant, then our thought processing is in the aura around the body. All right. The reality is that our thoughts, our consciousness is spread out throughout the universe. Mm-hmm. We are connected literally to all information, all consciousness in the universe.
And does it open up then certain gateways, for lack of a better word, when we step out?
Absolutely. Every time we do this dance, I call it the dance between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, if you will, or every time you go on that little trip or open that doorway, it opens you up to more experience and experience is what it's all about, really. And training ourselves and learning what different, how to process, how we process thoughts. And that seems to be the most important part of it. So I think that, certainly people that have had near-death experiences demonstrate certain abilities to go inside. But I think it's the aftermath of a near-death experience, the fact that you can't have it without spending, tons of time going through it 1,000,000 times in your mind. What happened? How could this be? How could I be aware and conscious and most people describe this, people who've had near-death experiences, will describe it, because reporters, and you can watch this on television and, so on and so forth, or in newspapers, and reporters being skeptical will say, well, how do you know that it just isn't a dream, or just, it was a figment of your imagination? And typically you will have near-death experiences respond by saying, no, it was more real than real. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean, more real than real? And a lot of,
I guess it's almost like your death experience becomes your physicality.
Well,
in that
yeah,
sense,
if you were to say, well, what is more real than real? That's weird. So here's an analogy that I use. If you were born, let's say you were born with terrible eyesight, mm-hmm. and then on your 18th year, somebody handed you a pair of glasses and you put them on, and oh my God.
Right.
Look at, wow, you can see, so that's more real than real.
Yeah.
It would change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, absolutely. So that's the experience. The obvious question that comes to mind to me now is, where does God fit into this picture?
God? God fits into this picture in every single aspect of humanity and creation. We are, and this is what I've learned over a number of near-death experiences and many, many hundreds of out-of-body experiences, and we are all individuated aspects of the Creator. We, as a collective consciousness, form what we call the Creator.
So do you become more aware of the Creator every time you have a near-death experience?
Well, I think we become more aware of our role in it. But I mean, our role in this, because we existed long before these bodies, we will exist long after they leave, because we are part of that consciousness that is the Creator.
But when you say that, you speak of it as if it's a knowing within you, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So
it's not guesswork anymore for me.
Anymore. So there was a point when it was guesswork. So what caused that change then?
Oh, well, all of the above. The near-death experiences. The fact that, the experiences that I had mm-hmm. over the many years since, the first drowning when I was 12 years old, and this powerful experience that shocked me and led me to believe certain things, and it changed my life. And even though I didn't recognize it at the time, it changed how I dealt with the world. And throughout the years, each subsequent experience that I had that bore out that particular train of thought, or, and I learn all the time. So I might think, well, I have an answer to something, and I'll have another experience and go, oh my God, no, that wasn't right.
Yeah, I believe that.
I thought it was that, but it's not, But
so even your conceptions are evolving as you're experiencing and learning
absolutely. But
more.
After many experiences and many eons of thought put into it, and in trying to capture the essence of it, is that we are seriously, this sounds like New Age, woogie, we are all one,
but we are seriously
that's the reality, is that, we form this one colossal consciousness, including E.T., so which is kind of cool.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that since you brought it up. Have you had experiences with E.T.?
Yes, I've had
communications
a couple. Yes.
It's either yes or no, Paul. Well, I guess it could be a maybe.
Yeah, it could be a maybe, because it's that part of consciousness that goes, what? Did that really happen?
Right.
But suffice it to say that I have done remote viewing regarding extraterrestrials. And
so what do? You remote view off planet, or on another planet, or Mars, or what do you do?
Here. You don't have to go anywhere.
Okay.
The reality is that extraterrestrials have been a part of our world for as long as we've ever been here, and perhaps longer than that. And so it's real, and it's true, and they exist. And it'd be so condescendingly stupid for us to think that we're the only intelligence in the universe.
Of course, it's absurd, yeah.
And regardless of how, the Stephen Hawkings of the world or people like that, it would be absurd to think in this colossal universe that we're the only
ones that,
that are stupid enough to be running around killing each other on this planet. This is like, it's sort of very condescending
paradox.
thoughts. Yeah. We're not alone, period.
So, do you know others who've been in touch with extraterrestrials?
Yes, I know.
No?
Because I've been involved in some research that
Formally.
Yes, that involves extraterrestrial intelligence and so on and so forth, and
so like you hear about different species, and there's good ones and bad ones.
I don't have any direct experience in that.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't think there's a good and bad. I mean, there's a good and bad in everything, but really, is there this this struggle? I think if you have the intelligence and the education to travel the universe, to move faster than the speed of light, that I think that kind of intelligence or that kind of development overshadows all notions of evil and so on and so forth. So I'm not saying that that isn't a possibility, because the species do what they do.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think that those games that we play on our planet, cultural clashes and murdering people in the name of God.
There's a higher consciousness out
Right.
there.
I mean, that doing that kind of practice is sheer stupidity.
Right.
And I think if you can travel the universe, you've passed that place of stupidity.
Yeah, I guess you can see a bigger picture from up there.
Yes.
That's I guess that would be evident. Looking down, it would be not nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can I play devil's advocate a little bit?
Sure.
There's a lot of remote viewing YouTube videos out there, let's say. And people who've claimed to remote view things, and then after a certain amount of time, those remote viewed things never happen. So there must be...
Don't believe anything that people say,
Okay.
including me. Find out for yourself.
That's good advice.
The reality. I mean,
That's
this
good
is
advice,
and this is true. I mean, run it through your filters.
Right.
We are all connected, seriously, to all intelligence in the universe. If it sounds like BS,
It probably is.
there might be some truth to the BS quotient part of it.
The reason I ask that is because it's a skill, right?
Yeah, but what's happened, you see, and I know who you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
There are certain people who claim to have, and who were perhaps connected, with, the higher echelons of Stargate and so on and so forth, and may have been trained in the system, who make the most outrageous statements.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about marketing.
Okay.
It's about selling CDs.
So it's no
and
longer about the truth now, it's about...
Right, and it's about calling, the pictures of doom and everything else like that, and it's all about marketing, I think, and selling DVDs and CDs and, so on and so forth. So be very suspect when it's like somebody telling you that you have a curse placed on you, and for $400 I can remove it. Right?
Right.
So be very suspicious when you hear that kind of analogy, or and I know what you're talking about. And there is no planet Nibiru or whatever it is that is approaching our universe. This is just it's a crock. I mean, there wasn't a spaceship in the the vapor trail of the Hale-Bopp comet. And a whole bunch of people, drank the cider so that they could join. It's just like, this goes on and on and on. You're always going to find...
I actually received a book in the mail called The Red Planet, and it was threatening, and how this Nibiru is going to hit, etc. Like, somebody actually took the time to mail out these things.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, but, and somebody else, trying to make some money on it. So... it's like, pharmaceutical corporations, follow the money trail, and, boy, did I open up a big one there.
We won't go there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's profitable sometimes to sell gloom and doom, you know, and if you have the method to, you know, to save people, then that's worth something, and so you can sell it until they find out that it's a crock.
So let's talk about your experiences with remote viewing then. What would you say you must have done many instances of this practice by now. What would you say is the percentage of accuracy?
I don't, you know, I know what I do.
Right.
And
I'm saying for you, for yourself,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Because you can't really say for anyone else.
No, I mean, I never ever really took, you know, like, you know, did an empirical study on, you know, on it, but I would guess, I mean, each, you know, it's sort of,
Each instance is different?
yeah, each remote viewing is different because, and I seem to go in cycles myself, 2 or 3 months. And so it might be hot psychically or intuitively for a month and a half or 2 months.
I guess it really depends on
And
your
then it
own
just kind
state.
of, and then it kind of just wanes and falls off, and then I feel like, oh, geez, well, I didn't do very good, you know. So I would think, I mean, and it seems, I mean, there's a whole lot more to it. There's something called sidereal time, you know, which, you know,
We gotta go into it now.
well, no, it's going to twist your mind. You know, so what? Oh God, why did I? Even back in the days of Stargate, when, you know, then when it was still a top secret project, they noticed that some of these people who were the best in the world, I mean, these were the best remote viewers, the best psychics in the world, sort of thing. And some days they just, it just sucked, you know. And the next day they could be so accurate, I mean, you know, describing persons, place, things, anywhere in the planet, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the next day it was just like brutal. And they're thinking, well, what would cause that? Why can these guys be so good? In fact, this morning you were really good at it, and you did such a wonderful session, and this afternoon, God knows where you were.
And they don't know what the variables are that cause that.
Right, and so what they did is wanted to figure out, is there some cycle? Is there some reason for this? Why does this happen? And they came upon this, actually a remote viewer. The problem was given to a remote viewer. I mean, these are all hidden targets or hidden in the remote viewer. The less the remote viewer knows about anything, any target, the better he does, or she, all right? The more you know about it, the worse the results, because your left brain gets involved in it and you taint it. Like, people will ask me, well, can I remote view my grandma? And I say, yes, you can, but be very suspicious of the information you get, because you know grandma. And so you're going to add stuff. So you might be saying, oh my God, it's Sunday, so grandma's in church, and this might be the one Sunday she's down at the casino dropping a bundle, right? Your left brain changed the information, right? So the more you know about the targeting,
So your left brain kicks in and you get chatter, and then that
Right.
influences
Right.
the outcome. Okay.
Right. And so what they found out in giving this problem to a remote viewer, or more than one, the remote viewer not knowing what even the question was, said the answer has to do with something, you know, cosmic time, right? And it has it has the effect, or the problem is in the what's the word? Conflicting or bombardment of noise from the universe. And they thought, well, that's weird. What is that all about? So they did this big study, and they found out that there's something called sidereal time, which has to do with the movement of the planets, or cosmic time. And what they discovered is that...
So astrology?
No, not astrology, but what they discovered is that there is a time of day, and this changes each day by 4 minutes. On the sidereal clock, which is 4 minutes faster than Earth clocks,
Right.
it's in relationship to the movement of the Milky Way. And so, oh God, how do I describe this? What they discovered is that an hour and a half to 2 hour window on either side of 1330 sidereal time, it was like a 300 or 400% increase in psychic functioning, accurate psychic functioning, around 1330 sidereal time. So we would think, aha, that's 1:30. It's not, right? Because that sidereal clock is 4 minutes shorter per
Is
day.
it based on the cycle of the
Right.
moon, the sun?
Well, it has to do with noise from the Milky Way, from the center of our galaxy. And so here's the crux of it. Let's say that, oh gosh,
I'm getting goosebumps.
if the Earth, if I had the Earth in my hand here, all right, if I had this ball in my hand, which is the Earth, at 13:30 sidereal time, I would be on the back, local time, I would be on the back side of the Earth with the Earth blocking, or in between me and the rest of the Milky Way, blocking all of this noise and electrostatic energy and electromagnetic energy that comes from the center of the Milky Way. The Earth itself blocks it at 13:30 sidereal local time because I'm on the opposite side of the planet. And when it comes around like this, that I'm exposed, 6 hours later there's a huge trough, and I'm exposed to all of
the
this
noise
from the universe, which gets into my mind and into my thoughts and jumbles everything else. And this applies to everybody.
Right.
Even,
And you can't block that?
well, you can do some, no, you can't.
So meditation won't
Generally,
block that?
no. Generally, I mean, there's some things you can do. You can do what they did at the Monroe Institute or in Stargate. You can build yourself a chamber that,
An etheric one,
yeah,
obviously.
that is shielded with copper, and you create. I can't think of the name of it right now, but if you
Titanium.
yeah, if you put copper on the walls in a room, completely surrounded yourself, it prevents any sort of
Actually or etherically?
no, actually.
Actually.
Yeah. If you, what do they call that? I can't think of it. I'm getting old.
You're not.
If you enclose yourself in copper, if you built a room and you closed yourself in, say, 1/8 of an inch copper like they have at the Monroe Institute in Virginia, they discovered that it prevents cell phone tower waves, radio waves can't penetrate it. All right.
So wow, so cell phones on us probably make a huge impact on us.
Well, it could, and it quiets down the noise coming from the universe. All right. Faraday cage, they call that. All right.
Okay.
Prevents outside energy, all right, or interference. So what they discovered is that around the best time to do remote viewing, in fact, any, like, your corner store psychic is affected the same way. And they've monitored, they did a study of studying over 14,000 remote viewings and discovered that around that 2 to 3 hour window on either side of 13:30 sidereal time, there was a 200 to 300% or higher improvement in accurate psychic functioning. And 6 hours later, after we get more exposed to it, it falls off into a trough, and they say, don't even bother because you're going to suck. Because there's all sorts of other stuff coming up.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that, and so given that, if people who are in the know and in the business and don't have access to a Faraday cage that they can sit in, it depends. I think everybody's accuracy, anybody who tells you they can do 100% accuracy is full of it. I would suspect that my accuracy on what I do, and it seems for me, it seems to depend on the necessity or the importance of the target. If I'm looking for...
Does it make a difference whether you're attached to the outcome or not?
Oh yeah, it does.
Okay.
But, so I don't want to be, it seems to me that depending on the importance of the situation, say looking for hostages and stuff like this, it seems, because then I spend more time at it, and my accuracy seems to improve with that. And other smaller things, just doing menial, like, then it falls off because it's not important. Like, doesn't really matter, So I'm not sure, but I think sometimes if it's an important targeting situation, it could be between 70 and 80% of the things that I report are provable.
Right.
All right. And depending on the time of day and so on and so forth, that can fall right off.
So what about remote viewing past, present, future? Is that all possible?
Future
possible?
There's really no, time is sort of irrelevant,
So...
Skip Atwater, I'm not sure if this is, Captain Fred Atwater at the Monroe Institute. Skip says that time is God's way of making sure that everything doesn't happen at once. And he said, and he put you here so that it doesn't all happen to me. Which is really profound.
Sounds scriptural almost.
But probably true.
It is
So there is no,
scriptural, actually.
so there is no, I mean, in the classes that I teach, and there are 3 different levels of classes that I teach, and like, the basic level, and this is all based on, this is the proven Stargate, scientific method of remote viewing. There's like a level 1, a level 2 gets into more spiritual elements, and the level 3 is sort of, professional kind of finding missing people, map dosing, things of that nature. And what I find amazing is that everybody can do this. I have not, over now just about 1,800 people that I've taught how to do remote viewing.
I've been really tempted to take your course.
And, well, you should. And I haven't run into a single person who just was like a post and said, I don't get it.
Right.
There are, I mean, if you tell yourself, I mean, and why would you go to a workshop if you were going to tell yourself, well, no, this doesn't work and it's bull, and, and I can't do it, right? And a lot of people actually do that. It'll be like, well, no, maybe other people can do this, but not me, And what's so cool is being able to prove them wrong.
Right.
And I know that, in a class that we have, we might have 20 or 30 people in, and at some point in a single weekend, every single person in that room is going to hit the point where they go, oh my God, wow, and hair stands up in your neck, and you think, oh my God, I just did the impossible. Because it is.
Yeah.
From a human
Perspective.
From a physical perspective, it's impossible.
Right.
Because
you've never even begun to imagine what the possibilities
Right.
are, and now you've been presented with a possibility that's outrageous
Right.
for life.
Right. If somebody was to say to you, I have an envelope here, this is just to test you, and inside this envelope I have a photograph, and it represents a photograph of some person, place, thing, or event going back in time in the history of the planet, and you can describe it. How impossible is that? To begin with, it's billions and billions to 1 against chance. To begin with, there's 7 billion people on the planet, but all incidents and all things going back in time, it's just outrageously impossible, except they do it every day. So.
Wow. Like I did, there's a free remote viewing course that I did online, and it surprised me too. Like, I mean, the shapes I drew were very simple, but they were in the picture. They were in the places where I drew them, and
Yeah.
it almost scared me to like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do this right now.
Well, maybe because it does also raise questions. People have fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Also have fear of success.
Yeah.
Because it's like, holy smoke, what if this really is true? What if it works? Oh my God, right? Yeah. And so it does raise a whole bunch of, human holy crap.
But, well, if everyone could do that, that's a whole other level of ethics now involved here too, right?
Well, this is an interesting thing that I've discovered in working with, and I work with, with people like Joe McMonagle and Skip Atwater and Dale Graff and David Moore, some of the best minds in the remote viewing world. And what occurs to me, and this is what I find amazing about it, because even though this started off as a military intelligence application, which is so absurd, and notwithstanding the fact that these folks who were in it, who had the near-death experiences, who had, some of them didn't have any kind of near-death experiences at all. They just were very good at it. Mm-hmm. That what the generals and the Army and the intelligence services couldn't predict is that you cannot do this every day. You cannot put your mind into the matrix every day without eventually running into spirit and notions of propriety and everything else that goes along with it, and an understanding of the higher process, that we are all connected, and so what I found so wonderful was that you could not, some of these people that I work with who are the best in the world and were involved for years and years and years in this program, you could not find more spiritual people on the planet than these people, because they understand what it's all about, and we're connected in so many ways.
So when you say you can't help but run into spirit, so tell me about experiences where you've run into spirit, or elaborate on that a little bit.
Oh God.
Must be a synopsis you keep doing.
Yeah, there's this, yeah. I mean, it's a huge field. It's a huge subject, from everything from communication of certain kinds to just to that knowing that we're connected to everything in the universe, all other beings, all other consciousness. And, excuse me, it could be as simple as you were sitting there doing a remote viewing assignment, and suddenly a person's face comes into your mind, and they're animated in front of you and going, smiling and winking, and then poof, they're gone. But that person is no longer in the physical, they're in the spirit world. And you didn't invent it.
No.
You know. So
I've had that happen in dreams where somebody just enters a dream unexpectedly, and it feels like they're not supposed to be there, and they'll wave or smile or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and that's how the spirit world, you know, our loved ones who have passed on or whatever, will communicate with us in dream states and things like that as well. So, you know, it's a pretty common thing. But when you can prove it, when there's relevance to it, and that's what remote viewing does, and that's why I like remote viewing. I mean, in terms of people ask, well, about out-of-body experiences and remote viewing experiences, and like in say an out-of-body experience, I mean, you can be able to prove it, that you did have this experience, and that you did fly, and you did see this person doing a certain thing at a certain time, so on and so
A
forth.
shoe on a ledge or whatever, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is provable to that extent. Remote viewing is sort of instant physical feedback on it, you know. I mean, in the training stages,
Right.
you know.
Because it's right in front of you, the
Right,
picture.
we're going to show you a picture in like 5 minutes, you know, and describe it, describe everything around it, you know, which is so amazing to me. And it really works, and it just opens up, you know, our whole world. So people would ask, okay, what's the benefit of it? And I say, well, you have access to all knowledge in the universe.
That's pretty beneficial, isn't it? How do you beat that?
Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, well, what's it like to be enlightened, you know? Who is it, the Dalai Lama or somebody, that famous quote, you know, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, have you ever remote viewed, like, astrally, like, become conscious astrally and then remote view? Have you really?
Yes.
Well, how is the experience
Sometimes,
different?
well, here's sort of a difference between remote viewing and an out-of-body
Yes.
experience.
Okay.
In probably maybe 30% of the remote viewing sessions that I do, the official kind of, you know, looking for missing people kind of stuff or whatever, I actually have a bilocation. So that's like, even though I'm aware,
define bilocation.
it's like an out-of-body experience.
Okay.
Right. So I'm aware of sitting at a desk, you know, holding a pencil and writing down information that comes into my mind as we go through this process.
But you're
Yeah.
also somewhere else.
Right, and then all of a sudden I become aware that I am somewhere else, floating over the ocean or standing in a room, looking at a room. And so here's the difference. In a remote viewing sense, a remote viewer could describe this room we're sitting in. A remote viewer could say, well, I detect two entities, two people talking to each other, it appears to be. I can hear voices. I hear certain sounds. You know, it seems like there's tables and chairs in this room, so on and so forth, right? And they can maybe describe, you know, the colors in the room. In an out-of-body state, not only could the experiencer describe that, but they could literally put their head in the table and describe the molecular structure of the table, or put their minds into it, right? So it's sort of
Probably describe the feelings of the people, or the they're with? Or
Yes. Well, I mean, the remote viewer can too, but generally what I find is that when I have that experience, when it's like it becomes a bilocation, then you can take it to the bank, because it's usually very accurate then, my perceptions. Trouble is, it didn't happen that often. So maybe, 3 times out of 10, 4 times.
Do you meditate before you remote view?
No, not really meditate, but I do what we call a cool down.
Okay.
And that's just sort of a process of letting go, relaxing, basically. Letting everything loose.
So like counting 10 to 1 or?
No, I mean, you can. For me, what I do is I listen to special tracks of Hemi-Sync, which are from the Monroe Institute.
Yeah.
And these were developed, based on the brainwaves of Joe McMoneagle, one of the greatest remote viewers in the world.
Can you speak a little bit about the Hemi-Sync?
Well, Hemi-Sync is, this is development from the Monroe Institute in Virginia, in which they were looking for a way or a process to induce absolute relaxation, so that you could possibly allow people to experience out-of-body states or expanded consciousness and awareness. And they developed a process in being able to do that, and I'm going to talk about that tonight as well. And it's a patented process called hemispheric synchronization, or Hemi-Sync for short, in which it allows, through the carrier of sound, through stereo headphones, allows
So why does it have to
the
be
slight
headphones?
control. It doesn't have to be headphones; it can be stereo speakers.
Okay.
And because the technology is in the sound, in the differences in the frequencies between the left ear and the right ear, and it allows people to move into deep altered states of consciousness. And in that state, it's like being in the middle of a theta range of consciousness, and the opening dream state, being in an open dream where you can see and do anything you want.
Can you do that at will?
Not always. Occasionally.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Okay. And most people can?
Listening to Hemi-Sync.
It's a learn.
Oh, and listening to Hemi-Sync, yeah, no question. And, it will guide you and take you, if you're open to it and you just let it go and relax, it will take you to deep states of relaxation. We have, on Vancouver Island, we have Monroe Institute Canada set up now.
Oh, wonderful.
In which we offer the same programs that they do at the Institute in Virginia, especially Gateway, which is the opening program. And these are 6-day residential programs that anybody from anywhere in the world can come. And
are you directing that?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And we operate 3 of those a year right now. And they're week-long residential programs at Honeymoon Bay on Vancouver Island, which is on Cowichan Lake, which is just gorgeous.
We'll have to go on a field trip.
Quite, yes, I think so. And have had wonderful success. It allows everybody to just sort of set aside, their own notions of consciousness and just become or explore their own consciousness. And that may or may not include an out-of-body experience, but it includes invariably an experience that we understand that we're far more than physical bodies, and that we can perceive, and experience things that are beyond physical senses in any way. And we have, we run these 6-day residential programs at Honeymoon Bay on the island.
Okay. Well, I'm running out of questions.
Okay.
Is there anything
I'm
you
running
wanna
out of
share?
answers.
Are you? Is there anything you want to share with the audience that I may have left out?
Oh, no. Well, I have no idea what you've left out. I think most importantly, I encourage people to be open to their own spirit, to their own consciousness, and to the fact that we are powerful spiritual beings, and we are connected to all things and all information in the universe.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.